All right, guys. Hello. Welcome to the stream. I think I've gotten started here already. Not sure. You guys may have to let me know because I can't see any of my video. Not sure why that's happening there, but nonetheless, let me just do a quick check here and see if we're actually streaming. Yeah, so it looks like we're live here. It's going to sound kind of weird.
To the stream.
Yep, okay, we're good to go. We're good to go. Yeah, it's really weird the way YouTube is. So you're going to see a lot of background stuff here because I'm doing this off the cuff. So welcome to the channel. I'm Buzz Weaver. This is typically the Friday vlog release that I do each Friday. And of course, I do an introduction here because I'm waiting for people to arrive or get the message that I am actually live streaming. But welcome, it's Friday, and we have a verdict in the Kyle Rittenhouse trial. He is not guilty. We're seeing a little bit of the live coverage here from Fox News Live, as I am doing this live. So, good afternoon to all of you watching. It is now 1:50 p.m. Eastern Standard Time with the time change, and things are going to get very interesting. And I waited a while to do this video, or to do a video, because first off, I worked in law for 5 years. And in the last few years of working in law, I worked for a criminal attorney, and then I worked for the state. I worked for the Public Defender's Standards Council here in the state, and we defended individuals who were guilty of crimes. I worked both in juvenile, starting off to learn. I was a legal assistant. I was not an attorney. I was not even a paralegal. I was a legal assistant. My background is actually computer science and technology, but I did a little stint in law for a little while, worked for a friend of mine, and then just experimented a little bit more, worked for a couple law firms, and then worked up to working with the state. So this is yet another example, like when we cover here on the channel, things that happened in court aren't typical of what you would see in an actual federal level trial. And what I mean by that is certain things the prosecutor did and said, and the things he did was very unorthodox. They are not typical in a courtroom for him to kind of either, one, play dumb, but he does know what he's doing because he's a competent attorney. Two, say things intentionally to provoke the judge to respond to his action, and bringing it very close to a mistrial because of the prosecutor's inability to simply do his job. And then there was a lot of intentional background things that he did that were also questionable. So I do have to pop over here to chat too to kind of see if there's any chat activity. So I'm going back to the video again to check on it real quick. I know it's in the afternoon. Not a lot of people are probably at home or watching or online or simply whatever do his job that they're doing. And then there was a lot of intentional background things that I know you're going to get a little bit of feedback. Yeah, see, I can't even see chat. I'm not even able to see my chat. There's nothing going on here. I am going to say hello in chat. Hello, chat. I don't know why I'm not seeing chat in my broadcast here. So we're kind of doing it all off the cuff. So I apologize if I don't see your guys' chat. I may have to actually go over to... Oh, it may be because of OBS chat. I might have disabled OBS chat. So, yeah, I don't want to spend too much time fiddling with settings. I just wanted to jump right in as quickly as I could to, here we go, chat. And there we go. Okay, so I can see the chat here in OBS. Now, I don't know why I can't see it in my standard view, because it's really kind of weird, because it's almost like YouTube wants me to set up a private chat. Anyway, so let's see. So the conscientious viewer, I'm not in the U.S., so maybe a dumb question, but is it typical for the White House to make statements on trial verdicts? It isn't particularly common, but because we're living in a very polarized environment right now, and you have to remember, too, Joe Biden specifically said during his campaign, he identified Kyle Rittenhouse as a white supremacist. So, again, we're kind of looking at a very similar situation with the Covington kids and Nicholas Sandmann. Does Kyle Rittenhouse, pursue the mainstream media? Does he pursue the president? Does he pursue the administration for mischaracterizing him? Because by no means, in any way, shape, or form, is Kyle Rittenhouse a part of or participating in any sort of organization like a group of any kind, whether it's right wing, whether it's white supremacy, whether it's Proud Boys, whether it's Oath Keepers, whether it's Promise Keepers, whether it's whomever. He is unaffiliated with anyone. So hopefully that kind of answered your question. So I am curious on whether or not, people have already mentioned. I mean, here on Fox News, they've already mentioned that. So, the White House, the left. So let me just kind of tell you a little bit about what's going to happen here. So the left, the progressives, the cancel culture, the outrage mobs, they aren't particularly interested in justice, right? What they're interested in is outcomes, having their expectations met. So when you see news reports, when you see tweets, when you see sound bites, when you see a rogue prosecutor, like in this case, say things that are unorthodox, say things that are unusual, or say things that don't seem coherent to reality, that's because they are sending out a ambiguous or intentional message to set an intention. So what they're trying to do is they're trying to create a reaction. They're trying to create an emotional response because controversy, anger, sexuality, these sorts of things trigger people. And so you're going to see more people active or activated by something that angers them on social media or mainstream media than something that is comical or just standard good guy kind of Samaritan news. So you have to keep those two frames of mind in place because the mainstream media is a business. And for them to make money, they need eyes on their product. So they don't have to answer to anybody. They don't have to answer to a committee. They don't have to answer to any authority. They can mischaracterize within reason. They can make up things within reason. As long as they're not slandering and they're not, caught in libel, they can pretty much say whatever they want about Kyle or President Trump or whomever. So if that kind of answers that one too. But yeah, I'm curious to see what the response will be from the White House or others. But what I want to do here is go over some of the news that I collected as I was watching to kind of bring to you guys, because I was going to do a separate video, but I decided just to go live, to go live. So Kyle Rittenhouse judge stops proceedings, fumes about media criticism. And this is very true because what's happening was the media, who doesn't have to answer to anyone or a board or a committee or oversight, they can pretty much say whatever they want to say. And the judge was very upset by this because a lot of the mainstream media was mischaracterizing him, mischaracterizing the trial. And it's easy for them to say these things because they don't work in a court of law. They're not familiar with the content. They're not familiar with the environment. And that's what irritates me as both someone who worked in law and someone who is a background in computer and technology. So when I see people say something incorrect, right, then I'm like, that's ridiculous. Why are they saying that incorrectly? It's very similar to Joe Biden, because you have to remember, listen very carefully to these details. Joe Biden simply gave a press conference, okay? He didn't say he was about to enforce any sort of edict. He wasn't saying he was about to enforce some sort of decree. He simply said he was looking into fines towards businesses who had more than 100 employees who needed to get vaccinated. So he skirted around the Constitution. He skirted around the law because he wasn't trying to enforce anything. He was able to get away with what he was able to say. So very similarly here in the Kyle Rittenhouse, when the judge is trying to explain, look, the media has no business trying to characterize something that has nothing to do with them, isn't part of their business. This is a court of law. There's standards, there's procedures that they use, and the media is just simply mischaracterizing that information, and it's unfortunate that it's happening that way. So we also have Gage Grosskreutz, who on the stand told the truth, and that was that Kyle Rittenhouse did not shoot him until he rushed towards him with a gun. All right? So that is, by definition, a self-defense, because the prosecution kept trying to make an argument that Gage had his hands up, but his hands were up. However, in his hand, while his hands were up, he had a gun. So, also, they tried to freeze frame the image of Kyle with his AR with Gage Grosskreutz in front of him, and they freeze framed it as he was lowering the AR. So, when Gage approached, who, incidentally, Gage had a concealed weapon without a permit, so Gage was carrying a firearm illegally, okay? Gage was carrying a firearm illegally. So, Gage reached for the gun, moved towards Kyle, and that's when Kyle raised the AR, but he didn't fire. Gage Grosskreutz at that point then raised his hands as Kyle was aiming the AR at him. So, once Gage raised his hands up with the firearm still in his hand, Kyle lowered the AR to the ready or ground position. So that means that they freeze framed the image of Kyle pointing the gun what would appear at Gage while Gage's hands were up. So that was another kind of mischaracterization by the prosecution. And if you watched any of the video, which again, some of the video was edited by the prosecution intentionally so the defense could not see it clearly. So that's what this was. So speaking of Gage, so Gage goes on Anderson Cooper, or he does the circuit. He goes on Good Morning America. He does the whole circuit. And he mischaracterizes what happened. So he's back, he's doubling down, he's walking it all back. And Anderson Cooper, I'm not going to play the video, but Anderson Cooper calls him out on it. He says, well, Mr. Grosskreutz, this is what you said on the stand. And it's so ridiculous and embarrassing. A grown human being who told the truth on the stand now goes on morning news stations and doesn't tell the truth. It's absolutely outrageous and absurd that would happen. So, yeah, so that's just another aspect of the trial that I just thought was bizarre as someone who worked at the federal level in court on similar situations. As you can see here on Twitter, white supremacy is now trending. Kyle Rittenhouse found not guilty. And then, I'm not sure why they're talking about Matt Gaetz, but maybe it could be just a distraction because, of course, they like going after Matt for, his impropriety or whatever. But, of course, they often forget about Swalwell, who also had his own impropriety, and now it trended over to Warzone, which, interesting. Warzone talking about Call of Duty Warzone, by the way, in case you were curious. I'm not sure why Warzone came up because the new Warzone isn't going to come out until, does it come out today? I don't know. I have to check. Anyway, so Binger is now arguing that hiring a lawyer to help you submit evidence to the state is evidence of bias, because this has to do with Hernandez. Now, Hernandez is a kind of a, what do they call him? On-the-ground citizen journalist and commentator here on YouTube. He's often on Tim Pool's show because he's a competent, capable individual who goes to these events, right, and covers them very much like when he's covering Antifa, Black Bloc, and BLM. So this was one of those instances where Binger, right here, pictured here, prosecution, where he's like asking Hernandez, well, why did you hire an attorney? Well, Hernandez or anyone can hire an attorney. That is a right that we have, to hire an attorney for counsel if we're, either on the witness stand or involved in some sort of legal action. You're going to want an attorney because there may be things that you do that could, that you do incorrectly and then could get dismissed in court because it's not done correctly, it's not filed correctly. And believe me, attorneys will look for any reason to find something that would mischaracterize either the defense or the prosecution, to then, say, hey, this was misfiled, this was not correct, this should be thrown out, so forth and so on. So, like I said, there is a procedure, there is a process, and of course, attorneys immediately look for those sorts of things. So, I'll go into the preparation here in a moment because that's what I did when I worked in law, and that was prepare discoveries. So, Binger, this is one of those instances where Binger said something he should not have said because he's a competent attorney, despite the fact that he looked dumb and did stupid things. So anyone who worked in law is going to be like face palming the whole time he's talking, because they're like, he didn't have to say that. There was no need for him to say that. He knows that people are entitled to an attorney. He knows this is part of the Miranda. He knows this is part of the process. But Binger said it anyway because it was on television. That's why he said it. He's setting an expectation. So what you're going to hear probably today across social media is one of the most common rebuttals or responses that I see across Twitter, and that is, well, Kyle should have never gone over there. He should have never crossed state lines with a firearm. He had no business being there, blah, blah, blah. Okay, I'd agree. I wish Kyle had not been there because of this incident, and I do empathize with Anthony Huber, who was shot and killed. That's the boy with the skateboard. And I empathize somewhat a little with Joseph Rosenbaum, who was shot and killed as well. And of course, Rosenbaum had his own serious background. He was convicted of, I have to use family-friendly language. He was accused of harming young children. Now, of course, that doesn't entitle him or doesn't suggest that someone should be killed because they do this. But what the prosecution left out, now that we're on that topic, with Joseph Rosenbaum, you notice that if you watch the trial, Binger said, and this is when Kyle raises his gun and shoots and kills. Well, I'm just kind of paraphrasing here, guys, so don't hold me to the exact wording. I'm just paraphrasing. Binger says, so this is when Kyle raises his gun and shoots Rosenbaum, okay? And what Binger didn't say was that while he was chasing Kyle, he was screaming, I'm going to effing kill you. I'm going to effing kill you. It's also important to note here when it comes to Gage Grosskreutz. He was saying the same thing. So Grosskreutz and Rosenbaum both told Kyle that they were going to harm him. And I'm probably going to get demonetized now that I said the other word, but suffices to say, they said they were going to kill him, or they were going to kill Kyle. So he's going to be concerned, and that, is a conveyance of a threat, as it were. Now, that wasn't brought up in the actual wording of the law and case law and stuff like that, but, suffice to say. So, who is Dominic Black? Okay, Dominic Black is Kyle Rosenberg's buddy. Kyle gave Dominic the money to buy the AR, or what's known as a straw sale. In the state of Georgia, here where I live, a straw sale is illegal. A straw sale, typically the way a straw sale works is, I'm just going to give you a very out of the ordinary scenario, or a rather hyperbolic scenario. Let's say someone just gets out of jail, right? Let's say it's a misdemeanor jail sentence for something silly like writing bad checks or something innocuous. Okay, well, because that happened to you, because you're going to have a record of something. Now, of course, if you committed a felony, obviously you're going to have a record. But let's say you're this individual who committed this crime, and now you're out with your girlfriend or boyfriend, and you go to the gun store, and you give your boyfriend, girlfriend the money, and you say, I want a .357 Magnum. Let's go in and buy the .357 Magnum, but you're going to be the one who fills out the paperwork and has the 77443. I'm trying to think of the form number right now. I can't think of it right off the top of my head. It just went right out of my mind as soon as I said it. You fill out a form when you're in the store, obviously, that says, do you have you committed any crimes, blah, blah, blah. And then, of course, they call up and they do a phone check. So Dominic Black purchased the firearm for Kyle in Kenosha. So when you hear someone say he crossed state lines with a firearm, Kyle did not cross state lines with a firearm. He was a lifeguard in Kenosha. His father lived in Kenosha, so he has levels of residence and occupation. So it wasn't like he went out of his way. Now, you want to talk about someone who went out of their way, that would have been Gage Grosskreutz. He went out of the way. He drove 51 miles to get to Kenosha, whereas Kyle only drove 21. But that's splitting hairs. Dominic Black is the one who purchased the firearm for Kyle Rittenhouse. Kyle did not cross state lines to get it. Now that we're talking about all the nonsense, let's look at it. Let's see if I can just kind of increase this a little bit. Let me check chat real quick. All right. I don't know if you guys if everybody's still awake, still watching, I guess. I'm going to check the stream real quick. So I apologize for the purchase the firearm for Kyle Rittenhouse. Kyle did not cross state lines to get it. Now, now that we're talking about all the nonsense,
this is
let's
me,
look at it.
repeating
Let's see if I
myself,
can
obviously.
just kind of increase this
Maybe I
a
should
bit.
just mute it.
There we go. That's better. All right, so back to the stream here. All right, so we got. All right, so that's Binger, and then of course Dominic Black, and then of course we're gonna talk about the mischaracterizations and that you're probably gonna see today. So, the media claim Rittenhouse crossed state lines with his gun to go to Kenosha. No, we just talked about that now, and we clarified it. In testimony, the gun was kept in Kenosha. He did not take it across state lines. That's correct. Dominic Black purchased the weapon in Kenosha. It was in Kenosha. Media claim Rittenhouse Rittenhouse has few no ties to Kenosha. That's incorrect. The testimony said Rittenhouse was a lifeguard in Kenosha at the time, and his father lived there, as well as his grandmother. His grandmother also lived in Kenosha. So also, media claim Rittenhouse was an outsider and did not understand law enforcement. Well, that doesn't really mean anything in self-defense. You don't really have to understand law enforcement to know how to defend yourself. Rittenhouse testimony. He was a police explorer for the Gray Slack Police Department and a cadet with the Antioch Fire Department and a certified lifeguard. Now, I also had gone to lifeguard school, also very similar to him. I also went to firearm training school and that sort of thing too. So I don't know if he had any firearm training himself, but his trigger discipline and his weapon discipline was very indicative of someone who at least had a functional knowledge of weapons, a functional muscle memory of how to operate the weapon, and trigger discipline. So Kyle, aside from all of the trial itself and so forth, exercised a tremendous level of self-discipline with that firearm. So, so media claim Rittenhouse shot people as he ran away. See, this is ridiculous. The prosecution witness confirms Rittenhouse shot when a pistol was pointed at his face. So that goes back to Gage Grosskreutz, who himself said that Kyle did not shoot him until he pointed the gun at him, which is self-defense. So the state's own witnesses corroborated what Kyle said. The police officers that were there for the defense, well, obviously corroborated everything for the defense, obviously, but the prosecution was a nightmare. I mean, it was just, my years of being in law, I have seen incompetent attorneys say dumb things because they weren't sure what to say at the time, so they're trying to fill space, kind of like what I do often in my videos. But I've seen attorneys say things to it's really weird. I've seen attorneys do really dumb things in court, but nothing where a trained professional prosecutor like Binger. Now look, Binger is no dummy. This guy is not a dumb guy, okay? He's a professional. He's competent. He's capable. And this is what's ridiculous. It's very much like Joe Biden. Joe Biden and Binger know law, or they have tons of people to explain law to them when they're preparing for a case or preparing for something. Joe Biden has been in politics for nearly 50 years. So here's another individual who has no excuse for behaving the way that he does, because Joe Biden has experts. The man is the president. He has experts all around him explaining to him how things work. And the idea that Joe Biden doesn't know that trying to mandate a vaccine violates the Constitution is about as dumb as me wearing a rubber badge on my shirt and carrying a cap gun and saying I'm a police officer. That's how dumb it is. Oh, another incident that just recently happened that Jack Posobiec talked about. Jack was on top of this as well. And that is that the Kenosha prosecutor withheld video evidence from Kyle Rittenhouse defense team. So, in simple terms, the prosecution had a very clear, high-resolution drone video that was showing Joseph Rosenbaum chasing Kyle. And of course, as we mentioned earlier, the prosecution failed to mention, and he didn't fail to mention, he intentionally didn't mention it, that Rosenbaum was yelling, "I'm going to effing kill you, I'm going to effing kill you." So basically what they did was and here I have it right here. I'll show you on my computer. This is Handbrake. And I use Handbrake, which was one of the programs that we saw on Binger's laptop. So Tim Pool had an actual still shot of Binger's laptop, and he had Handbrake and another video editing software. So I use Handbrake. So I say, for example, I make the Friday vlog in 30 frames per second at 1080p. But because YouTube compresses the video, I want to compress it myself so that the compression is faster when it loads to YouTube. So I'm not waiting, a long time for it to compress. So what they did was they took a video and then they lowered the resolution so that the defense couldn't use it to show clearly or show more clearly when Joseph Rosenbaum was chasing after Kyle. You can see them in the parking lot. Kyle kind of goes to where the vehicles are to retreat and to gain a position of defense. And then as Rosenbaum approaches him, Kyle turns, raises the firearm, and then shoots him. You don't have to have a weapon in your hand of any kind, but if you're yelling, "I'm going to effing kill you" while you're approaching someone, it is a reasonable and logical conclusion that you feel your life is in danger, particularly under the circumstances. So if your buddy's chasing you around the house, or your girlfriend or someone's horsing around with you saying, "I'm going to kill you, I'm going to kill you," kind of thing, that's not necessarily self-defense. However, if you're in a situation where Kyle was in, and you got people screaming at you and chasing you during a riot, not a protest, this was a riot, then self-defense. All right, so here again, another example of Binger being just dumb, just so stupid. So, holy effing S, the judge just completely snapped at Kyle Rittenhouse, prosecutor. So, Binger, I was astonished when he began his examination by commenting on the defense post-arrest silence. That's because it's been a basic law in the country for 40 to 50 years. So I'm sure every one of you are familiar with television. When they show an arrest, the police say you have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be held against you in a court of law. Okay, that's our Miranda rights here in the United States. The police, incidentally, do not have to read you Miranda rights, just so you know, just for the sake of technicality. The police do not have to read you your Miranda rights. All right, so not all situations and circumstances is the police going to read you your Miranda rights. Particularly, say something like if it's a misdemeanor or whatever. It's just TV and movies like to jump on this. And this is so extraordinarily basic, so incredibly basic. Like, I'm not an attorney. I'm not a paralegal. I was a legal assistant. And, of course, obviously, I knew this, even as an assistant, that, even from movies and TV, people have their Miranda rights. They have the right to remain silent. And that's basically what Kyle did. And that's exactly what you should do in many cases is remain silent. And particularly if you're in a situation like this here, it's just to remain silent because the police sometimes they want to get their paperwork done. They want to go home at the end of the day. They want to just have some sort of conclusion, some sort of closure to their day. And so they may try to force a confession or make suggestions about things or try to make deals with someone. That's not the job of the police or the detectives in reality, although they do it all the time. So, I'm not trying to give you legal advice, okay? I'm just trying to give you examples of scenarios that I'm familiar with, having worked in law and so forth. And really, the last thing you want to do is start getting into a pissing contest with a police officer because they have every right there. Even if you're completely in the right, you've done nothing wrong, the few times you could ever really mention anything to a police officer is if you're on the street in a public area. If you're not doing anything, they just walk up to you and start giving you a bunch of crap. Then you can say, "Am I being detained? Am I being detained?" Because they have to have what's called articulable suspicion to hold you there. So you just say, "Am I being detained? Am I being detained?" And of course, they'll continue to talk and talk and talk. And you say, "Am I being detained? Am I being detained?" And then you slowly start walking off because they have no legal authority to stop you. If you're in your car, that's a whole other situation. You can't necessarily say, "Am I being detained?" because despite the fact that what they pulled you over for could be anything, a turn signal, slightly going to the left, slightly veering to the right. It doesn't matter. If they pull you over, they can come up with they can concoct a reason why they stopped you. So so that would be your articulable suspicion for them having to stop you in your vehicle. All right, so CBS News, as we talked about earlier, the media does not have to answer to anybody. They don't have to answer to any committee. They don't have to answer to any authority. So they can say dumb things and get away with it. And they do it a lot, particularly on Twitter. And I often question how much of this is unintentional and how much is actually intentional. Because we're living in a very knee-jerk reaction. And as I mentioned earlier, the media and the left like to set an expectation. So the left and the media, they don't have to have all the information. They don't have to have the facts. They don't have to have the evidence. All they have to have is a charge, or the seriousness of a charge, because a charge you can exaggerate and you can sensationalize. The facts and the evidence is going to be a little more difficult to dispute. Now, you can question the evidence and you can question reality, but you're going to look kind of foolish when the actual evidence and reality and truth come out. So, the media can do these kinds of things, but as you see here, Kyle Rittenhouse testifies in his murder trial yesterday, breaking down in tears as he told the jury that he murdered two men at a Black Lives Matter protest last year in self-defense. Now, the way this is worded and the way it's framed would maybe possibly give you an impression that he shot black individuals because it was at a Black Lives Matter protest. Now, it wasn't a protest. A protest is when you go to City Hall, you get a permit, you tell them where you're going to be, so the city, law enforcement, and others in the community, emergency services, know where you are, have an idea of how many people may be showing up so that it doesn't get out of control. But more specifically, you're in a designated area that's been approved for this permitted protest or activity. So when you see these protests, as they call them, and people are out in the streets, they're running around the entire town, and of course, if they're vandalizing, setting fire and stuff, they're obviously not engaged in a peaceful protest, even though they may have a permit. The permit does not include anything outside of the boundaries that was set by the permit. So when these people are out running around in the streets and the police approach them, they can say that they're engaged in an unlawful protest. Okay, so whether it's one person, two people, three people, 100 people, if they're outside the designated area of the protest, they can be stopped and questioned and even arrested for being outside of the boundaries of that particular protest. And if they're engaged in, obviously, vandalism, setting fires, destroying property, breaking windows, shining lasers in people's eyes, throwing frozen water bottles, doing any of this sort of activity, obviously, then the police can stop you and then execute an arrest. So the other thing here, I had this here, Kyle Rittenhouse, shooting survivor delivers tearful testimony in teens murder trial. So again, we're here with Grosskirts, and as we mentioned earlier, he did the whole morning cycle of news where he went on to different television shows and he went on Anderson Cooper, and very similar to when Joe Rogan was mischaracterized about his treatment for his, for C19, where they said, "Oh, you took horse paste and blah blah." No. Joe said, no, I took a prescribed medication by a medical doctor for people because ivermectin is used in Africa for what's called river blindness or parasitic infections. Because, of course, Africa being a third world country, and I'm not trying to disparage or insult anyone there or be insensitive, that's what it's used for. Is because people drink water from rivers and it has parasites, and so ivermectin helps them with the parasitic infections, but also apparently helps with C19. And of course, Kenosha braces for possible unrest after Rittenhouse verdict. So, as I've said and as I've maintained throughout the time that I have been doing my videos here on YouTube, the left, the cancel culture, outrage mobs, perhaps selected groups of Democrats aren't particularly interested in actual the Constitution or Bill of Rights. They are interested in outcomes. They are interested in something that meets their expectation. So it doesn't matter how accurate, how much evidence, how much truth is presented. they will riot if their expectations are not met. And their expectations were that Kyle Rittenhouse was a white supremacist who went to a riot, or I'm sorry, went to a protest that was a riot to then cause harm to other people, which is inaccurate. It's just not what actually happened, clearly. And we saw this in the courtroom if people paid attention and listened. And I tried to give you guys kind of a brief overview. There's a lot more that was involved. I just wanted to give you guys the highlights, wanted to give you guys just the direct information, taking the difficult, taking the complicated, and making it as simple as possible for you guys, because this was an area that I was familiar with and worked in law for several years. And I can't emphasize enough how much of it is a process, how much of it is, rules and so forth and so on. So I hope you guys enjoyed this so far. Looks like chat is still there. I don't know how many people are in chat. I'm not sure why chat is not working for me over here in my live stream area. You guys can see this here. I'm going to refresh it. I don't know if it's going to mess up the live stream or not, but I'll do it anyway. Yeah, see, I can't see chat here. So, yeah, top chat. All right, let's go to live chat. And let's see my settings. That is just really weird. So, see, I should have a video right here. I should be seeing something here. So you connect streaming software to go live, which we clearly already are. So I'm not sure what the deal is there. But nonetheless, guys, so we can see here from Fox News in Kenosha, Wisconsin. And, of course, they have, as I understand it, they have the National Guard there for rioting. This is outside the courthouse. And looks like Garrick Tenney's there reporting for Fox. And let's see if I can put this in chat if you guys want to see live stream. Let me throw this in the chat if you guys want to see this once I'm done. But there's the link to the stream if you guys want to go to the Fox News live stream. Now, if you're in a different country, it may not work. If you're at your place of work and watching this, it may also be blocked. So just so you guys know, but there's the link if you guys want to do that. And so, if you guys have any questions at the moment, I'll watch chat. Thank you, Lynn. Thank you, Jay Frono. Thank you, Wonka. Thank you, The Conscientious View. Thank you all, guys, for asking your questions. JRG. Thank you, guys, for stopping in. I'll have to look a little more into why I wasn't able to, see the actual video playing out or whatever. I'm not really sure. I kind of just threw this together really quickly. So I want to thank all you guys for your continued support. If you haven't already, be sure to click that like button. And those of you who may be watching this later, of course, you can like it, hit the like button. It will be a live stream, so there will be no subscribe video popped up here for you. But I hope you guys have a great Friday. Happy Friday. And that has been the live stream here from